After working with thousands of dogs and their owners, I've learned this. Most aggression isn't about a dog being bad. It's about a dog trying to solve a problem the only way it knows how.
This is the USA Dog Behavior Podcast with Scott Sheaffer. Scott is a certified dog behaviorist specializing in aggression, fear, and anxiety in dogs. If you're dealing with serious behavior challenges or want a clearer understanding of how behavior really works, you're in the right place.
Today, we're talking about one of the most misunderstood subjects in the dog world, aggression. Why do some dogs become aggressive while others do not? And more importantly, what is aggression actually telling us? Aggression is one of those words that instantly raises the temperature in the room. If someone says, "My dog is aggressive," most people immediately picture danger. They picture a bad dog, a dangerous dog, a dog who wants to hurt someone, and there's a degree of truth in all of those feelings. But that's usually not the right starting point. Aggression is not a personality type in dogs. Aggression is a behavior, and behavior has a function just like it does with humans. If you think about it, we do certain behaviors as people because we think it will achieve some kind of outcome. Dogs do the same thing with their aggression. This means the dog is trying to accomplish something with its aggression. The dog may be trying to create distance. The dog may be trying to guard its food, a resting place, a toy, or a person. The dog may be trying to stop being touched in a way that bothers it or hurts. The dog may feel trapped, overwhelmed, frustrated, or afraid. So the first question should not be, how do I stop this? And I mean, stop the aggression. The first question should actually be, why does this dog feel the need to use aggression right now? The question changes everything. What's causing the aggression? Let's start with something many owners find a little bit surprising. A lot of aggression is defensive, even when it looks offensive. Let me state that again in a slightly different way. Most aggression is defensive on the part of the dog, even when it looks like it's being offensive. A dog who barks, lunges, growls, snaps, or charges may look bold. He may look like he is trying to start a fight, but very often that dog is trying to prevent one from starting in the first place. He does not really want to engage with that other dog, human, or whatever that it's barking at. I remember as a kid being bullied by a guy in junior high that was at least a foot taller than me. I wasn't particularly tall in junior high. In the heat of the moment, I took the strategy of acting like I was the toughest guy in the world and wasn't the least bit afraid of him. Truth is, I was terrified, and the last thing I wanted was a scrap with him. But he bought my little act, and it's called offensive defense, and he left me alone. Dogs do exactly the same thing. When they're scared, they just want the scary encounter to end. They use aggression in the moment to say, stop. Now, this doesn't mean the behavior is acceptable, of course. It doesn't mean it should be ignored. It doesn't mean there is no risk. But it does mean we need to understand the emotional engine underneath the aggressive behavior. In other words, what's causing it? And here's the number one reason you always need to address aggression in dogs. If a dog barks and lunges at a stranger and the stranger moves away, the dog learns something. That dog learns, gosh, when I do that big scary display, the scary thing leaves. I feel better. From the dog's point of view, it worked. And behavior that works tends to repeat. It's called reinforcement. The behavior literally reinforces the behavior. And that's one reason aggression can grow, and almost always does grow, stronger over time. And which is why we need to treat it as soon as we start to see it. The dog is not necessarily becoming meaner. The dog is becoming more practiced at a strategy that has produced results for him. He's becoming quite proficient at making himself feel safe in the moment. This is where we need to talk about reactivity. It's a term you hear all the time in the dog behavior, dog training world. Reactivity and aggression are related, but they aren't exactly the same thing. And they're used interchangeably all the time, which is somewhat of a mistake, and I'll explain why. The term reactivity is used incorrectly so much in the dog training world that it almost has become useless. It's a term that means nothing anymore, unfortunately. But let's talk about what it should mean. Reactivity means the dog is overreacting to something in the environment. That overreaction might look like barking, lunging, whining, jumping, freezing, hiding, pulling away, or even trying to escape. That list includes some aggressive behaviors and also some that are submissive behaviors. Reactivity is simply the term used for all the possible exaggerated and over-the-top responses a dog may have to a trigger, whether aggressive or submissive. Aggression is but one possible expression of reactivity. A reactive dog is not always an aggressive dog. Reactivity can be shown using more submissive behaviors, as I noted earlier. Here's a good way to think of it. All aggressive dogs are reactive because aggression is one of the reactive behaviors. But not all reactive dogs are aggressive because some reactive behaviors could include trying to escape, for example, or freezing. Reactive dogs are simply dogs that have exaggerated responses to triggers, such as to strangers in their home, for example. These responses include behaviors that generally fall into three major groups. Number one, fighting behaviors. Aggression, for example, would be an example. Number two, flight behaviors. This is that fight or flight thing you hear so much about. So flight behaviors, for example, trying to run away from this scary thing. Or number three, freezing. Fight, flight, freeze. Just standing still, hoping not to be noticed. And reactive dogs that are aggressive may only show aggression in very specific context or situation. And that distinction really matters a lot, and it's one that's missed so much in the dog behavior world when it comes to aggression. Dogs that are aggressive show this aggression in very specific contexts and with specific triggers. Much of the general public thinks that an aggressive dog is simply just an aggressive dog. That's not true. Good behavioral work starts with accurate observations about what is actually triggering the dog's aggression. What exactly happened? Who was there? How close was the trigger? Was the dog on leash? Was food present? Was the dog resting? Was the dog touched? Was the dog startled? Was the dog in pain? Did the dog try to move away first? All those details really matter when it comes to treatment. All right, let's get more specific right now. Why do dogs become aggressive? Let's walk through 6 of the most common reasons. The number one reason that dogs become aggressive is fear and anxiety. That is by far the majority of aggression cases. This is the biggest cause of aggressive behavior in dogs. Only about 10% of fearful dogs simply run away from the thing that scares them. In fact, about 90% of fearful dogs do just the opposite. They bark, lunge, growl, snap, or bite. In other words, show aggressive behaviors because they believe that's the best way to make the threat go away. And it frequently, if not almost always, works for the dog. And here's the important part. The threat does not have to be objectively dangerous to us. The threat only needs to be perceived as dangerous by the dog. It doesn't have to make sense to us. Think about it. Do all of your fears objectively make sense? Mine don't. and yours probably don't either, but they're real to you. The stranger in your home may actually be quite friendly. He might be your beloved brother or sister. The other dog may be harmless that it's seeing out on the street. The child that's bothering your dog may be well-intentioned. But if the dog feels unsafe, the dog's behavior will be driven by that perception. Dogs don't react to reality exactly as it is. They react to reality as they perceive it, much like humans. That's very important to remember, and I stress this all the time with my private clients. All right, the number 2 reason that dogs become aggressive: pain and medical problems. This one gets missed a lot. Pain lowers tolerance. A dog with arthritis, dental pain, ear infection, gastrointestinal discomfort, an injury, or neurological problems may become defensive when touched, moved, approached, or handled. If a dog suddenly becomes aggressive, or if the behavior worsens without an obvious explanation, a vet exam should be part of the process. We call this a rule-out exam. We're ruling out physical reasons. This is especially true with older dogs. Sometimes I'll hear owners say, he's getting grumpy in his old age. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe he just hurts. It's not uncommon. And if he hurts, behavior modification won't correct the real issue. Nothing worse than chasing an aggression issue only to find out that it has a physical manifestation. There's something physically wrong with the dog that's causing pain. So make sure to do that. That's kind of especially with an older dog, that's the first thing to do sometimes. Number 3 reason dogs become aggressive is resource guarding or possession aggression. Resource guarding happens when a dog protects something valuable to the dog, that is. That might be food, a bone, a toy, a bed, a crate, a stolen sock or tissue, a doorway, a couch, or even a person. The dog's thought process is not really that complicated. I have something important, and I am worried I may lose it. The mistake many owners make, I see this all the time, is trying to prove they can take it away. They repeatedly reach for the bowl, they take the bone, they challenge the dog, they punish the growl. That often makes the guarding worse because it confirms the dog's concern. From the dog's perspective, they learn, I knew it. When people come near my stuff, they take it. A better approach, and one that we use in behavior modification, is to change the dog's emotional response to this. Teach the dog that human approach predicts something good, not loss, pressure, or conflict. Let me take a second to tell you about a service I offer. When I come back, we'll pick up with the number 4 reason dogs become aggressive.
Scott will be right back. For animal shelters, rescues, and veterinary practices working with aggression, fear, or anxiety in dogs, Scott Sheaffer provides professional behavioral seminars available online or on-site, focused on practical, real-world strategies. Each seminar is customized for your team with discounted or complimentary options available. Visit usadogbehavior.com to learn more. Now, back to Scott.
All right, let's get back to it. The number 4 reason dogs become aggressive is frustration. Frustration can turn into aggression very quickly. This is especially common on leash or behind barriers, called leash aggression or barrier aggression. A dog sees another dog across the street, for example. He wants to get to that dog. Maybe he wants to investigate. Maybe he wants to chase. Maybe he is conflicted. Maybe he is both excited and worried. But the leash stops him. It frustrates his efforts. The frustration builds. The body gets tight. The barking starts. Then the lunging starts. The behavior escalates quickly. The leash didn't necessarily create the underlying issue, but it simply amplifies it. This is why leash reactivity when walking your dog can look so intense. And it's also why simply tightening the leash, repeating commands, or trying to physically control every movement often makes the whole situation worse. It's called behavioral cueing. I spend a lot of time with my private clients on that very topic. The number 5 reason dogs become aggressive: genetics and early development. Some dogs are born with a more sensitive nervous system, just like some people are. Some dogs are more easily startled. Some recover slowly from stress. Some are naturally more suspicious. Some have stronger guarding tendencies. Some have been bred for traits that can show up in challenging ways in a modern household. Early development also matters. The first few months of life are really important, typically the first 12 to 16 weeks. Puppies who don't get appropriate exposure to people, dogs, surfaces, sounds, handling, and normal life experiences may be more likely to respond fearfully later. Key word in that last sentence: appropriate exposure. This is mangled all the time with puppies. However, if there's early development issues, this doesn't mean the dog is doomed, but it does mean we need to be honest. Not every dog starts from the same place. Some dogs need more structure, more distance, more careful exposure, and more thoughtful behavior work than other dogs do. Okay, the number 6 reason dogs become aggressive: learning history. Dogs repeat behavior that works for them. If growling makes a person back up a scary person, the dog may and probably will growl again. If snapping stops nail trimming, snapping may become more likely during nail trimming. If lunging makes another dog leave, lunging may become part of the dog's behavior repertoire. This is not manipulation, this is learning. And it's one of the reasons aggression should be addressed early. The longer a dog rehearses aggressive behavior, the more fluent that behavior can and will become. That doesn't mean the case is hopeless, of course, but it does mean it can be more challenging when the behavior has been rehearsed over a long period of time. Or should I say, when the behavior has been allowed to be rehearsed over a long period of time. It's important to address aggression in dogs as early as possible for this reason. Now let's talk about warning signs. Most dogs don't bite out of nowhere. They just don't. I know it can feel that way to the owner, but in most cases, before a dog bites, the dog gives ample signals that were missed, misunderstood, or even punished. I've been around dog situations at shelters, for example, where a dog is screaming, "I'm going to bite you," and no one is seeing it. And that's not that the people at the shelters are bad. Is that they don't understand dog body language. More on that in a second. In most cases, before a dog bites, the dog gives ample signals that were missed, misunderstood, or even punished. Those signs may include turning the head away, lip licking, yawning, whale eyes, freezing, stiffening, pinned ears, a closed mouth, hard staring, growling, or sudden stillness. And growling deserves special attention. Growling is not the problem. Growling is information. A growl is a warning. It's the dog saying, "Hey, I'm not happy here. I'm uncomfortable. Something needs to change." But if we punish the growl but don't change the underlying emotion, we may create a more dangerous dog. Why? Because now the dog may still feel threatened, but he has learned not to warn. That isn't improvement, that's suppression. And suppression can be risky. When dogs suppress warning behaviors, it's called masking. If masking behavior is a deeply learned behavior in a dog, it can ultimately turn into them biting seemingly out of nowhere. They just inhibit their behaviors until they can't take it anymore. They get so scared, they just blow through that and then go right to aggression, possibly even a bite. But there's so much we can do to keep that from happening if we recognize what's going on. What should owners do if they have an aggressive dog? First, stop thinking of aggression as an obedience problem, please. Yes, training may be a very small part of the answer, but aggression is not ever addressed by simply teaching sit, stay, down, come, leave it, or heel. Those skills may help with management, but they don't automatically change the dog's emotional response to triggers. Not at all. Second, identify the pattern. When does the aggression occur? Around whom? At what distance? In what location? On leash or off leash? Around food? Around resting areas? During handling? When visitors enter? When another dog approaches? Patterns tell us what the dog is trying to accomplish. Third, manage the environment. If the dog is biting over bones, stop giving bones in high traffic areas. If the dog lunges at dogs on narrow sidewalks, stop forcing close sidewalk passes. If the dog is unsafe with visitors, don't allow visitors to walk in and interact freely. Management prevents rehearsal, and preventing rehearsal is a major part of changing behavior. Fourth, learn body language. We talked about this earlier. Owners often wait for barking, lunging, snapping, or biting before they realize the dog is struggling. By then, the dog is already far along emotionally. The goal is to see the smaller signs earlier. A dog who stiffens, freezes, looks away, closes his mouth, or scans the environment may already be telling you he is uncomfortable. I have a free 49-minute video on my website, usadogbehavior.com, which is a crash course on canine body language. You can easily find it on my website, and I'll put a link in it in the description for this episode. Fifth, avoid punishment-based reactions that increase fear or suppress warning signs. If aggression is rooted in fear, anxiety, pain, or conflict, adding intimidation by you may make the dog look quieter in the moment, but it doesn't make the dog safer. In most cases, it ultimately makes the dog more likely to resort to aggression. And sixth, get qualified help early. Aggression is not something to experiment with casually. The stakes are too high. A competent, experienced, and rewards-based behavior professional will look at the pattern, the triggers, the dog's history, the environment, the owner's handling, possible medical factors, and the safety picture. That is, the management issues. That's very different from just teaching commands. Unfortunately, there really aren't a lot of dog professionals who really understand this behavior and how to treat it. Let me repeat what you're looking for in a dog pro to help you. You're looking for a competent, experienced, and rewards-based professional. I want experience to be the most important criteria in finding someone. Using positive, reward-based methods is also a very important criteria as well. Here are the takeaways in today's podcast. Aggression is serious, but it's not mysterious. It's not. It's understood. This is a very well understood behavior in almost every case. It's not mysterious. We know how to treat it, and we've been talking about some of the techniques and approaches to take with this. Dogs become aggressive for different reasons. That's right. Different triggers, different contexts. Dogs just aren't bad or aggressive. There's a reason they're doing their aggression, and it's usually pretty specific and can be teased out with observation. And some of those reasons include fear, anxiety, pain, frustration, guarding, that is resource guarding, genetics, early development, and learning history. When we understand the reason, we can correctly address the behavior. By knowing these things, we can stop accidentally and unintentionally making the behavior worse, which I see, quite frankly, all the time. We can help the dog feel safer. And in many cases, we can teach the dog better and alternative ways to navigate the world. And I'll tell you, I've worked with many, many, many aggressive dogs in my years in this business. And it's very exciting to see dogs let go of that fear and therefore start to let go of that aggression, which is a symptom of the fear. And the dog becomes much more happy. That facial tension you see all the time starts to fade away. Because we have to remember, the dogs aren't happy either. When a dog is being aggressive, they're not happy. They're afraid. Aggression is communication from your dog. And the message matters more than the noise, more than the behavior. When we look beyond the bark, the growl, the lunge, the snap, we can begin to see what the dog is actually struggling with. That is where real behavior change begins for your dog. Now, you understand the real story behind your dog's behavior.
You've been listening to the USA Dog Behavior Podcast with Scott Sheaffer. For more resources, including videos, articles, and past episodes, visit usadogbehavior.com. If you found this episode helpful, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Thanks for listening.